Talk to me about this Atlanta campaign as they're gearing up. We have Sherman at the head, who is familiar with the South. If I remember right, I knew he had been through Marietta as a surveyor, maybe.
He was tracking down veterans of the Seminole Wars, I believe for maybe pensions that they were entitled to, land grants, Mexican War probably, and he traveled through the area.
Gotcha. And talk to me the Southern perspective of Sherman is that he has devil horns and vampire teeth and a pointy tail. Talk to me about who Sherman really is and just his strategy coming into this.
This is going to surprise you. I like Sherman.
Okay.
I think with the possible exception of Lincoln, he's the most interesting person coughed up by the war. He's a fascinating man. You can't trust him. His memoirs, somebody said the only thing less trustworthy than Sherman's official correspondence is his memoir. And the same thing is true of Joe Johnston. Much too much writing about both of them has been based only on their memoirs. Don't trust them. But I like Sherman. His reputation in Georgia has been greatly exaggerated. Alan Julian, who was a retired Army officer, lived in Atlanta in the 1930s and 40s, 50s, got interested in Atlanta history. And he and Wilbur Kurtz wrote a lot of these historical markers. And Julian told the story that he was visiting an elderly woman in Marietta one time to talk to her. Oh, it was horrible. General Sherman burned everything, stole everything. It was horrible. Now let's go out and I'll show you our beautiful antebellum homes. Where'd those antebellum homes come from if Sherman burned everything, including the house that my mother was born in? That dates to the 1840s. And somehow Sherman didn't burn it. It's much exaggerated, mostly because Sherman exaggerated in the telling. A little different in South Carolina, but in Georgia, it's not. I think Sherman is fascinating. I'd like to have met him. I'd tell you some of the quotations from him, but you don't want that.
I kind of might. If you want to.
No, that's all right.
Okay, that's fine.
It's like quoting Harry Truman.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
A friend of mine who knew Truman said, you wanted to know what he thought, ask him and get out of the way, especially on Douglas MacArthur.
Kind of talk to me of just a little bit of his career before this, coming into the Atlanta campaign, and just overall as they're gearing up and what their strategy is. You talked a little bit about getting past Altoona Pass and getting that kind of thing. Just kind of get me into the kind of general scale of this.
Well, John Marzalek, who taught at Mississippi State, wrote a biography of Sherman, and his basic thesis is that Sherman, in Sherman's entire life, before he got hooked up with Grant, was essentially chaos. Sherman's father died when he was very young. He was raised by a foster family. He married his foster sister. His foster father tried to get him to work for him. He did go to West Point, was frustrated in the Mexican War, spent it in California, didn't get into combat, left the Army, failed in banking, not his fault, bank panic, and several other occupations, was essentially bumming around in St. Louis, where he met another bum who failed named Ulysses S. Grant. And when the war started, Grant and Sherman, because they were West Point graduates, were snatched up and assigned to command. Sherman had a little advantage there because his brother was a powerful senator. His father-in-law was a powerful political figure, been in the cabinet. Sherman wound up being sent out to command in Kentucky. He was loath to accept the responsibility, was very unsure about it, made the mistake of saying that it's going to take 200,000 men to win the war out here, which led to Sherman's insane. And he was, in fact, relieved from command, sent home to rest, brought back to the Army eventually, wound up being assigned to Ulysses S. Grant's command, and performed well as sending reinforcements to Grant, supplies at Fort Donelson, and was put in command of a division, was at Shiloh. And again, when the Confederates attacked, Sherman and his division fought very well, and he and Grant got to be very close, and they sort of leaned on each other. Sherman said Grant stood by me when I was crazy, and I stood by him when he was drunk, and we could get along together. And as Grant moved up, Sherman moved up as Grant's protege. And by 1864, when Grant was made the supreme commander, Sherman took his place over a senior general, and I think a better general, George Thomas. But Grant and Thomas did not get along. And Sherman and Grant did. And because of that, Grant picked Sherman. He was not a good battlefield commander in the sense of destroying the enemy. He would not have become that kind of commander. You know, we got to kill every man the enemy has, wipe him out. He instead, as I said earlier, became convinced frontal assaults don't accomplish anything. Better to destroy the enemy's resources, cut the railroads. I'm convinced Sherman's Atlanta campaign was a flank attack on Lee. That Lee's left flank was at Chattanooga, not in Virginia. And Sherman marched around it to Savannah, and then he was in the rear of Lee's army. And as I said earlier, his men did more damage in South Carolina than in Georgia, punish South Carolina. But they were, after the war, excuse me, after the war, Sherman followed Grant as the commanding general and spent a lot of his time going around with his old veterans. They loved him. He was Uncle Billy. They even on occasion called him that to his face. And yeah, as I say, I'm just fascinated by the man. Read his correspondence. He was one of these people who slept 2 or 3 hours a night, talked incessantly, wrote incessantly. I sometimes think he must have been writing different letters with both hands at the same time while he was talking to somebody. And there's a book of his letters that's about that thick, and it's only some of them. Selected letters, selected wartime letters of William T. Sherman, let alone what he wrote otherwise. I'd love to talk with him, as I said.
How close was he to becoming, like, I know he turned it down, and I don't know how much it's exaggerated in the Ken Burns Civil War documentary, but is it ironic that, like, you know, his brother was a politician and ran for president, and, you know, that was unsuccessful and that kind of thing with, you know, the Garfield election and all that stuff. But Sherman, he could have had it if he wanted it.
The presidency?
Yes or no?
His famous quotation, Well, actually, he has two. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. And his other one, I'm not qualified to be president. I have not been in the penitentiary. He could have had it. I don't think he didn't want it. He had the sense to stay out of it.
And do you think, I mean, just, I've heard the saying where it's like, when it comes to being a king, comes to being a president, usually the best guy for that job is the one that doesn't want it. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's true. I think the best president we had in the second half of the 20th century was Dwight Eisenhower. He didn't want it. He ran to keep Robert Taft from getting the Republican nomination. But I think that's true. You pretty much have to be crazy to want to be president. Massive ego. I don't know why anybody wants the job. I mean, you have a nice place to live, but as Barack Obama said, we have a nice clubhouse.
Talked about crazy, so many people thought that he was crazy, and then was it Sherman that he had like panic attacks?
In late 1861, early 62, when he was convinced. Albert Sidney Johnston was the Confederate commander out in that area, and he was doing a masterful job of feinting at the Federals, convincing them that he had a massive force, which he did not have. And they were just, Albert Sidney Johnston sneaking up on us. He's around somewhere with 80,000 men, and he's going to attack us. And Sherman had a nervous breakdown about that responsibility.